Hi, everyone. This is Bree with Gaia's Wounded Healer podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about taking back our power and specifically with the medical field. Um, yeah, let's get into it, everyone.
A little bit of what I did was I was in a very narcissistic two relationships. And after a while, that's your comfort. That's where you know, and that's what you do. And you just do it for whatever reason. And anyway, to get out of that, I I went to counseling and I told the counselor, "Oh my gosh, he just calls and screams and yells at me and makes me feel bad, and I think we've all been there." And I just listened because I didn't know what else to do. He was maybe an hour away, but he was still on the phone right there in front of me. And my counselor gave me the best information, and I've used that the rest of my life. And it's something as simple as just saying no and hang up. Now, back pre-cell phone era, there's a lot of satisfaction in taking that handheld receiver and slamming it down on the phone. But to tell somebody, to hang up, you have permission to say no, you have permission not to listen. If somebody is um, screaming and yelling at you and throwing a fit and making you feel bad, say, "Excuse me, I'm going to hang up." Or you just hang up. You have permission to hang up. You don't have to take the screaming and yelling, and just get out of the situation. And I know every situation's different, but for me to be told, you don't have to listen to that. You can hang the phone up, walk away. And it just kind of gave me some power. It's like, oh, I don't have to listen to this. I don't have to stay here. Take your own power, hang up the phone, walk away, whatever. It was something that I had to be given permission to do, and I didn't know that it was okay for me not to put up with that.
Pepper, I want to just say you might not have had his permission to hang up
Right.
and to do, what you needed to do to take care of yourself, but you definitely had your permission and you had every right to not participate and tolerate what was making you miserable.
Exactly. You don't have to put up, and it's hard. I'll say it's hard. You don't have to put up with abuse, whether it's verbal, physical, mental, whatever. I give you permission to walk away.
Yeah.
And if you walk away, stay away.
You know, I learned this lesson in my own life. When I walk away, I stay away because there's a reason why I walked away in the beginning, you
Right.
know? And so if I'm going to walk away, I'm going to stay away. That's my motto. I'll stay in there and I'll stay in there with a person for as long as it takes. But if it becomes abusive and something that is making me absolutely miserable, then it starts affecting my own health on a physical level because our emotional stresses affect our bodies on um, physical levels. So it's really important to take care of our emotional and mental, spiritual health also, too.
That's
Yeah.
very true because every stress emotion that we have, if we don't deal with that mentally, emotionally, it will manifest physically. Like, different parts of our body are connected to different stresses. And we need to realize that, oh, I'm sick because of this.
Mhm.
And if you don't take care of your stresses in your life, it's going to manifest physically, and you're going to end up sick in the hospital, emotionally upset, and you're going to have to you're going to have to deal with it, and a Band-Aid's not going to work. If you go to the doctor, here's a pill if you're depressed. Well, no,
Yes.
find out the real root problem and don't just take a Band-Aid. There's a reason you're depressed. Find out about it, empower yourself, get the courage to get help, and find out why you're depressed, or find out what's going on that's making this physical issue in your body.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Pepper, I would like to go back to episode, I think it was 3.2 that we did last week. We were talking about the different pathways, and you touched on that in your comment just a second ago when you were talking about how the root problem isn't always the physical aspect. It usually starts, well, it always starts from my angle. It starts at the emotional level, the gut health, the gut level,
Right.
but that emotional protection where of happiness is protecting our energy field, and that's where it really starts, is at our energy field. And so if our energy field, which is our meridians and our energy pathways, our chakras and things like that, if we don't address those as being the root problems, by the time it comes in and it just starts affecting our lymphatic system, and that starts affecting, giving blockages in our lymphatic system, then all of a sudden our immune system response isn't able to heal our body because of the blockages. And then it
Mm-hmm.
turns into circulatory problems and other problems, right? When we go to
Right.
the doctors, they're not giving us pill for the lymphatic system or the energy system to resolve the actually root problem. They're giving us a problem on the third step. And so that is one of the key issues why I believe that the medicine doesn't work for us. And that's in spite of.
Medical system, and we get to it being like, it's been this trauma, it's affecting your energy pathways, it's affecting your lymphatic system, and then it becomes the bigger problem when we go to the doctor and we're getting these
Mm-hmm.
medications from them. It's just a bandage that's
Yeah.
covering up something temporarily, and I feel like that's why so many people experience like a reinfection or a sickness that pops up in another place, an injury that pops up in another place. Especially with like autoimmune stuff, it's like, oh, you've got one under control, and then another type of autoimmune disease pops up. And it's because we're not regulating our bodies at the deeper level of where the trauma is coming from.
I
And
agree
they don't take
totally.
in Yes, and they don't take into consideration the chemicals that are actually in the prescriptions that they're giving us
Yeah. And
that are
just
supposed to
poisoning
be.
you further.
Yeah. And so if you actually are taking medicine, one thing that you might want to consider and be aware of is that, because I didn't do this, nobody kind of mentioned it to me, and I didn't realize that it was actually the truth, right? Until I found out, hey, this is the truth of the matter. If I get a prescription, which I'm off all medicines now. However, when I was on their medicines, I would I started looking at the back of the bottle and realized that, hey, every single side effect that this says that I could have, I actually have.
Hmm.
And so then they started giving me pills for the side effects. And so instead of one pill, then it became three pills. Instead of three pills, it became 10 pills. And next thing you know, you got a whole handful of pills and your body's shutting down on you.
Yeah.
And so the only way to get out of that vicious cycle, it's not one vicious cycle a person has to break at that level. It's a lot of different vicious cycles. And one thing is saying no to the medical system. That is one of the vicious cycles. I believed, and I know I'm not alone on this aspect, that when I went to the doctor, when I was dependent on the medical system to heal me for cancer, broken neck, whatever, right? I believed that I was supposed to listen to what they wanted me to do. They were giving me the cure when they said, oh, take this pill. Oh, do this treatment. Oh, do this surgery. Oh, do this. But really, in all reality, when it came right down to it, that isn't the honest truth of it. They're just not explaining the honest truth to us unless they're put on the spot. And when they're put on
Yeah.
the spot, when I put my doctor on the spot and I said, you know, like, I started asking questions and she said, oh no, these herbal things, these herbal remedies are definitely, they had nothing to do with turning your entire health around when my doctors thought I was going to die.
Mhm.
And the only thing that saved my life was I started getting off of the medicines and I started purifying my diet and I started exercising and I started doing natural remedies and natural techniques. And those things are what saved my life. When I went back to my doctor and I asked her, do you think that the things that I did saved my life? Oh, no, definitely not. And I'm like, whoa, that was such a, a big response. Definitely not. And I'm like, wait a minute. Like, I did everything you wanted me to do for years and years and years. And all I got was my body kept breaking down, breaking down, breaking down. And I really depended on them because I thought I was there for the cure. But that's not why they're actually there. They're actually there to treat us and to give us their opinions about
Mhm.
treatment that are suggestions. That's how my doctor explained it to me. We actually only suggest treatments. We actually only suggest medicine for you. You actually made the decision to say yes to those suggestions.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow,
But in that
I
moment when
guess
you're
I
in
can
their
talk.
office and you feel so helpless, you know, you want to believe that their suggestions are the answer, that that's what you need to do to get better. Um,
Mhm.
when I found out that I got my rheumatoid arthritis diagnosis, I waited 8 months to be able to get into a rheumatologist. And he told me, he looked at my hands and my feet and he said, what you have going on is so severe and you are so young that there is no other option for you than to go on methotrexate. And he said, I'm not even willing to prescribe anything else to you. This is it for you. And if you don't do this, your rheumatoid arthritis is going to progress. You're going to have deformities in your body and you will end up, you know, crippled basically. Um, and I left there devastated, in tears, because I was trying to explain to him, I'm having all of these relations between what I'm eating is directly correlated to my pain. Do you think that there is any like coincidence to that? And he said, no, I don't think that your diet has anything to do with it. I don't think that any of these natural remedies that you're doing are actually helping you. He's like, I don't think they're hindering you, but I don't think it's helping you. And come to find out, just a couple weeks ago, I found out that the medication that he recommended for me to take, which I did refuse, people who have the MTHFR genetic mutation, which lots of people have it, I want to say it's like 60% of people have it and they don't know. People who have this genetic mutation, their likelihood to have every side effect, extreme sensitivities to methotrexate is much higher than the person who doesn't have this genetic mutation. This doctor that I saw, he didn't care to even, run these blood tests on me to find out about my blood type, to find out about my genetic mutations that I have, about food intolerances that I have. He didn't do any of that. I did all of that research myself. And he's trying to prescribe me a medication that is proven to give people with this genetic mutation more sensitivities and more issues. They're like overlooking these details about people that are sick, and they just want to put you in a box, and this is one size fits all. um you know Go home, please don't come back. Like, they just don't want to they don't want to get to the root of the problem, and they don't want to know about the consequences that we're suffering, that's because of them, because they don't see themselves as liable.
That's it. That's the disconnect. They're not liable. We go in, we sign our papers, we release them of their liability, and all they're doing is following the protocol. That's how my doctor explained it to me. All I'm
Mhm.
doing is following the protocol, how to treat you. And I was like, whoa, but see, she didn't tell me that right up front. None of my doctors told me that right up front. They didn't tell me that until I started asking after I restored my health, after I put in the work to restore my mobility, after I did all of the research, and I pronounced the word I, because it's not just me. It's Bree, it's Pepper. It's not just us. It's you too out there who are watching us. It's each of our responsibility to put in our own research and to learn that we have the right to ask them questions. These are our bodies,
Mhm.
and we have the right to make the decision of saying, no, this might not be right for me. This is just your suggestion. And that's okay. Now, just like an abusive man, the medical system might not be okay for them to hear the word no from us, but we have that right to make our own medical decisions for our own selves. And Bree and Pepper and I are not here making any medical decisions for anybody else. We're just bringing awareness to the issues.
Yeah.
Mhm. And there's so much. Bree has talked before, and I know we're going to do some more on like bone broth and different gut issues, but that is very important, is to get your gut, get your body in balance with the right foods. Food is medicine. And I've always thought medicine, not all of it, but most medicines is like a band-aid, like Bree said. But if you really get to know your body, know your genetic, know your DNA, um, and eat the foods that you need, because the food is medicine. And if you go back and research where a lot of the medicines came from, originally natural, like, slippery elm is where aspirin started, and, everybody taking aspirin. And look at the side effects, like Bree had mentioned, the side effects of all these medicines. When if you really do your research and look into, get your gut balance, get your body absorbing the right things you need, and it helps emotionally as well as physically. And then the energy, we've talked about energy healing and working with Reiki and frequencies. Our bodies are pretty complex, but in a way, actually pretty simple if you know what you're doing. And like, Liz said, ask, don't, just because the doctor says take this, do your own research. It's your body.
And,
Yeah.
I
You
just
owe it
want
to
to,
yourself.
oh, so
Mhm.
true, Bree. You owe it to yourself. And, I just want to mention that when we go into our doctor's appointments, we might be waiting for 45 minutes to an hour and a half for that 15-minute appointment that, they're trying to rush us out of. But just remember that they are people too. Doctors are
Yep.
people too. And they have however many appointments that they can fill their schedules with. and they're overwhelmed and they haven't spent hours and hours researching to get up to your problem. They have just a few minutes from that appointment before you. They're making the notes on that person right before you. They walk into your room. They, for your appointment room, they look at your file, and it literally has a list of your diagnoses at the top of your file. And usually, from my own experiences, I make this statement: I never seen them dive in and say, well, let's go and expand into your file. I never seen them personally do that. I'm not saying that they never do that. However, most of the time they're looking at the list of your diagnoses when they come into your doctor's room, right when, or the doctor's appointment. And right when they get in there, they pop up your file, they read your diagnoses, and they're there for 15 minutes with you. And if you ask them a question about something else that's going on, even though it might be related or being a result of this problem, they'll say, well, you'll have to make another appointment for that because it's a different issue. So
Yeah.
then you have to, go follow their direction and do that. It's really a vicious cycle that until we empower ourselves and become knowledgeable, that it's a system that is designed based on to make suggestions based on protocol that is provided to them. So, for instance, myself, right? My doctor was suggesting I needed radiation treatments every year because I got cancer. They didn't do the tests that were necessary to diagnose the cancer right in the beginning. And it grew and grew, and it started metastasizing to other places, into my lymphatic system, into my lungs, for my thyroid. And so they wanted me to do surgeries. They wanted me to do radiation treatments. I went along with it. I did it. A year and a half later, they could not get my cancer under control. I ran into an herbal mentor at that point in time, and he started saying, Liz, there are some herbs you should research. And because of my Native American heritage, when I was young, there were herbs around, and my stepdad would say, oh yeah, you can eat these leaves, or you can eat these flowers on these different herbs and stuff. Though I was really young and I didn't understand that, I was still open to herbs because of, my experience in my youth. And so here I was following the medical system, and they couldn't even get the cancer to stop growing after I'd had 1, 2 surgeries, 1, 2, 3, 4 rounds of radiation treatments. They could not get the cancer to stop growing. I started doing these, I researched the herbs he suggested, and I started doing these herbs. One was SEAT, one was shark cartilage, which I really love the benefits of shark cartilage for anybody with cancer, by the way, and SEAT. But anyways, until I started doing these things, the cancer just kept growing. And then within 6 months, I went back to the doctor after I started these certain herbs. It stopped growing. It just wasn't growing anymore. It was because of the herbs. They had a year and a half. What they were doing wasn't working. I started doing the herbs. It started working. So then it just stopped growing, but they kept suggesting the radiation treatments while I kept doing their suggestions, not understanding that they're not there to actually give me the cure. They were there giving me suggestions based on the protocols that may or may not have even pertained to what was going on in my body. And so how I learned that was the hard way. After 9 years of doing radiation treatments every single year, my doctor came into my 15-minute appointment and said, well, um, we've reached your lifetime limit of radiation. Now we've surpassed your lifetime limit of protection for your immune system. And I was like, well, wait a minute. You never ever in this 9 years explained to me that every single time I was doing these radiation treatments, that it was affecting my immune system. You never ever explained to me that the first year that I was doing multiple rounds of radiation treatments, that I surpassed my yearly limit until I was at my 9 year level. You never explained to me these things. Well, I was young. I was in my 20s. And I didn't realize that I needed to be doing my own research and I needed to be doing my own decision making, right? I didn't realize those things. I didn't realize that they were practicing medicine. But now I do. On their doors, it tells us that. It says, you know, medical practice, or well, on all the different doors that on the specialty doors and stuff. I mean, you go in there, there's a whole big old list of what they're practicing that in that office, right? But anyways, they're really actually only making suggestions for us, is how my doctor explained it to me after years and years and years. And when I started asking questions, do you think that the herbs are what actually started making the changes? And I was afraid at that point in time to say no to the medical system. I had 3 young children. I was, barely in my 30s, and here I am. And I surpassed my lifetime limit of radiation. I surpassed my yearly limit of radiation once. I wasn't even aware of it. I was just following their suggestions, thinking that that was the cure to cure me. And it didn't cure me. It created a situation where my health was affected. So when my neck was broke, and here I'm in the medical system again, I did actually, going back to that time, I did actually say no to more radiation treatments. And by the way, the cancer did not grow in my body for 17 years. It just stayed dormant in my body, did not grow, not at all, for 17 years. Just stayed dormant with no treatments, just stayed dormant. I was okay with that. Right? And then when my neck got broke, my health was very deeply affected. They started pouring on all these pain pills, all these pills that were supposed to cure depression and anxiety. They don't cure anxiety. They don't cure depression. And it was a lesson learned the hard way. And so when I started looking at it and doing all this research, because I was bedridden, my neck was broke, I was bedridden in a wheelchair, and there I sat, and I was like, if I'm going to fix this, they're not going to fix it for me. And they almost killed me at that point. They almost killed me, and that's a different podcast. But anyway, my doctors even thought I was going to die, and I'm looking at the whole thing that I had learned over my lifetime, and I was like, herbs helped me before. Okay. So when I was looking back on my situation, and I had been researching, how the body works, different herbs that I could use to promote healing in my own body, I started realizing that, hey, in my 20s, they took out a big part of my lymphatic system when they took out my thyroid and when they took out all the lymph nodes in my neck. They didn't explain that to me. And it wasn't their fault that they didn't explain it to me. They only had 15 minutes per appointment. They didn't have time to explain it to me. It was my fault. I did not ask. I did not do the research. I did not do my part in my own health. I did not make my own decisions. I didn't realize that I was allowed to make my own decisions. I thought that I was supposed to follow their suggestions and that that was the cure. And I found out that maybe not all of their protocols were designed for everybody's individual medical situation. So their medical protocols were for everybody. They were not to address somebody who had already surpassed her lifetime limit with radiation. They just lumped me in a clump and gave me the same protocols for everybody else.
Yep.
And so that's really why it is so important for us to be empowered, for us to empower ourselves with the word no. It is okay for us to hang up that phone, like Pepper said. It is okay for us to walk away. It is not okay for us to come into a medical appointment and for our doctors to be guilting us, to be manipulating us, to coerce us, to make the choices that they want for us that follow their protocol. And when they do that out of manipulation, and I can give you so very many examples, not only from myself, but from all kinds of sorts of people that I run into all the time, where it's time and time again, guilt, shame. You're making your own. I even know a woman who they refused to rehydrate her because she refused cancer treatments. And when they refused to rehydrate her, either by giving her liquid to drink, ice to drink, or putting liquid into her arm, into her IV, no, they said that that was resuscitating her, and she chose not to do cancer treatments and to be resuscitated. But she didn't choose to be dehydrated. Dehydration could have been reversed, you know? And so it was basically a form of punishment in a way to coerce her to change her mind in her misery. And I know a young lady who was 13 years old, and that's a different podcast. They literally made her walk up the stairs with a broken hip, and then shamed her because she didn't want to come back to the doctor because she had went into that situation. So we have to be aware that we have the power to say no to systems, to people, to things that maybe don't serve us or benefit us. And I'm not telling you what decisions to make for yourself on this. I'm telling you that you have the right to make your own choices in this.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And to do your research. Research for yourself. And that's so empowering. Knowledge is power. If you have the right knowledge, then you're starting to think out of the box. And they want us to think in a box that they are our solution, just like in an abusive marriage or abusive situation. They don't want us to be empowered with the word no. They want us to be their puppet and they want us to do their will. But knowledge is power, and knowledge it empowers us to make our own choices, thinking out of the box. All right,
Um,
everybody. That's about the end of our empowerment episode and saying no and making your own choices for yourself. And I like to encourage everybody to like, share, and subscribe and promote our channel. And we'll see you next week, guys. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.